Do 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 do. We've got scorpions and flying dragons, and by scorpions I mean these things that shoot these really big arrows. Then again, we only got one dragon left. Maybe we have more. We'll find out next week. Fuck it. Anyway, that's it. Welcome to the Game of Thrones edition of the Series TV Drama Podcast. I'm Scott, and joining me tonight, well, you can call her sad and mean, you can call her a bad machine, but don't ever say she's the Mad Queen. It's Jamie.
Hey there.
I'm really going the whole 9 yards for your intros on these things. Oh, it's so different when I don't do the compare and contrast things that I've done for like 200 plus podcasts with Dan. So, how are you doing? It's been a while since I spoke to you last week. So, how's the weather there in Missouri?
Cloudy, rainy, with a chance of storms. That's May in Missouri.
And that's why we called you the Storm Shelter Born last week.
Indeed.
Oh, speaking of just current things, it was kind of funny that I spent the weekend in North Carolina. Actually, it was a meetup with a number of people who we all met through the online community for another podcast, the Jay and Jack podcasting empire, as it were. Whereas they have, they're really good. They put out several podcasts. They have thousands and thousands of listeners. They're pretty much the opposite of us. They're beloved. We're not, But it was funny because I ran into I think at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 different people indicated they listened to the podcast. Now I didn't know about 2 of them. The other 3 were kind of a surprise. So folks, if you actually listen to this podcast, it would be really awesome if you actually did make the occasional comment on our Facebook page, just so I know you're out there. Again, so look us up on Facebook, the Series TV Drama Podcast page. If you're a listener, you're probably already part of that group. I'm pretty sure. It would be rather shocking if you're not. Same goes for iTunes. If you actually are a listener, but you haven't gotten a chance to rate or review us there, and if you're still listening to us, I guess you must like us, or you're really masochistic, one or the other. Either way, please feel free to rate and review us there. Maybe it'll bump us up in the quote-unquote standings. Like I said, and I do blame on myself because I do little to nothing in the way of promoting this podcast for the last few years, because I kept thinking we're so low-tech, lo-fi, it's just a lark that me and Dan and then other people we bring in are doing. We're not taking it very seriously. I might take it a little seriously occasionally, kind of like the way I treat karaoke, quite frankly. But, hey, and if you follow us on Twitter, which is, as I've said a million times before, the handle is at STVD Podcast. STVD as in Series TV Drama Podcast. I know a couple people actually do this from time to time, which is really awesome and cool. Feel free to retweet the tweets that when we send out the podcast. Only because chances are most of you guys probably have a lot more followers than we do. So you might help by helping to spread the word. Maybe someone will actually listen to our podcast, and it might be one that's actually pretty decent, which I'm hoping tonight will be probably more so for you, Jamie, than anything I'm going to say, I would imagine. Oh, and now I have no idea how I'm going to do the wrap-up later, because I'm not going to repeat all that stuff. But I'll worry about that, in an hour and change. All right, so let's get to it. We're talking about the 4th episode of this final season, The Rise of Scott. Wait, no. The Last of the Starks is the title. As we've done the previous couple weeks, Jamie, have you now decided to pay close attention to the opening credits sequence for each week? Have you been paying attention to that?
Yeah, I have. I noticed that.
Oh, I think your audio is kind of coming and going there. See, right when I want you to start talking, you see, this is what we mean by low tech. Give it one more try before I just talk over you, Jamie.
Sure.
There you go. There you are. Okay.
Yeah, here I am. Yes, I, of course, watched them, and I noticed that our blue tiles did not flip this go-round.
Right, they're pretty much iced over. So you've got that. That's one thing. When we got to Winterfell, whereas before we could and you could still see, some of all the trenches that had been dug around the grounds for when they built all those big fires. But speaking of fires, now you can actually see all the big funeral pyre structures that are all in front of Winterfell before they lit them on fire as they did in this episode. So that's one major change. And I wasn't sure about this, so I did flip back to the previous episode and I watched the opening credits for that one as well. Once you start diving inside Winterfell on at least one level, there is considerably more damage there than there had been before, representing how everything was going to hell inside Winterfell with the dead or the Deadites running around there. So there are some after effects of the long night that we can see in the credit sequence. So what I'm going to be wondering now is when I check out next week's opening credit sequence, will we now be able to see like all those little scorpion harpoon guns lining the walls of King's Landing? Since we saw them at the end of this episode. So I'm kind of curious if they might add that little detail there.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So this episode kicks off with, you can essentially, it sort of kicks off with a funeral, so to speak, for thousands of people. But most importantly for us, all our favorite second and third tier characters who got whacked in the long night. By the way, which one did you think was sadder? The one with basically Dany and Jorah, which I'm thinking most people would vote for, or maybe Sansa and Theon? Because Sansa really was quite upset there. I
would say Sansa and Theon for the win on that one.
Interesting.
She didn't really get, well, I mean, as far as we know, she didn't really get a chance to say goodbye. And I mean, with Theon, would probably in the castle with Ramsay. I mean, would she have escaped? Who knows? But I would just everybody a relationship. I don't know, or it was pretty obvious, like Dany and Jorah. I mean, it was obvious what they were to each other.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
That's actually a great point. I'm glad, by the way, that at the tail end of that, all of a sudden your audio kicked in perfectly. For the first part, I was like, oh no, Skype is killing her phone. But now it's like, okay, now you're clear. I always don't know what to do. After 200-something podcasts, I still go, do I stop them? I don't know.
Yeah, it's magic and strong on Skype.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think you'll be fine for most of the podcast if you go in and out. Apologies to the listeners, but we're not starting this over. So we're gonna pound through this no matter what. Yes, that's what she said. Look, we sound like another podcast all of a sudden. Good point that at least Dany and Jorah had their final moments together, so she was able to quote unquote say goodbye to him, whereas Sansa never had that. Although they didn't have the, he loves me, but I don't love him that way because, friend zone, etc. With Jorah and Dany. But although I did like reading the thing that the directors or people behind the show, like maybe with Benioff and Weiss for all I know, probably not Nutter, might have been the writers, told her, just come up with something you want and you can whisper it into his ear. And I was reading about that, and the actor who plays Jorah, Ian Glenn talked about that, and he won't reveal what she said. He said it's going to be something just between the two of us till the day we die. It was a little sweet moment between us. He won't reveal it. So it's kind of like, it's like lost in translation. We'll never know what Bill Murray said to Scarlett Johansson. Now we'll never know what she said to him. Although she wouldn't have said something silly because she wouldn't have wanted to break character or ruin the moment. So it probably was something, about the fact that these two actors have been together working for the last 10 years. And this is her saying goodbye to him, at least on the show. So it probably was something probably poignant and sad, I would imagine.
I would think.
So then they burn everybody. I don't think it's no longer about worrying about the Night King resuscitating them. Now it's just about, well, what else are you going to do with, several thousand dead people? And John gives his sort of, I don't know if it's an inspirational speech, but it's a, nice thing. They're better than us, our brothers and our sisters, our mothers and our fathers, or, our uncles and our nieces, our aunts and our nephews. We probably didn't say aunts and nephews. He's gonna blow that later on in the episode. But anyway, so let's move on later on in the episode. We go from the funeral to now it's more of a. It doesn't feel like a celebration until after Gendry gets his lordship, and I think from that point on, then it's like, okay, we're here to celebrate, because it seems rather moribund up until, which makes sense. But it definitely goes from like a funeral to a wake, I think, so to speak. Speaking of Gendry, question for everybody. How the hell does the Hound know that Gendry and Arya were like slapping hams before the big battle? How would he know that?
Because he has a really good understanding of people, but he's so good at pushing them away.
Okay. I actually buy that as a reason, because even the first time I saw it, 'cause I've now watched it a couple times, I was like, how does he know? Is he magic? And I kind of realized.
Yeah, he's like an angry, surly Dr. Phil, the Hound.
I think he can. I clearly, just from Gendry's tone and what probably the Hound had witnessed before, he just kind of intuited it, and he's right. So yeah, it's kind of cool that Dany officially makes him, Gendry Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End. He's no longer a bastard. But it's much like several other things that happened during the scene. It's kind of notable that it's not until Davos, gets up and toasts it, that it kind of makes it okay for everyone else to go along with this and, believe it's true or whatever. So it has to be a guy, because no one trusts the female outsider. I thought that was pretty clear there, I thought.
Oh, and I like that. I like the little, the I-ness to the entire thing, too, because she's calling the shots for Baratheon, and she's looking just by doing that. It's putting her in a different light, I think. I mean, none of it was because she's like, hey, way to go, guy.
Oh, yeah. It was a smart move, whether you refer to say it's politically or strategically or whatever. And since we don't see that many smart moves being made by Dany or pretty much almost anyone at Winterfell, it kind of stands out. Because like, oh, that's actually pretty smart. And
I like it too, because Gendry doesn't see it that way at all. He's like, oh, cool, thanks.
Oh yeah, he of all of them, he would, and understandably, he is, let's just say, somewhat less than politically savvy. Why would he be? He's busy making armor and shoes and whatever it is that smiths do. We then have a little moment between for the next, I would say the next, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes. It's a lot of just like little moments that are like strung together.
Somebody went and did a Starbucks run.
Yes, we'll get there. And wait till you see the picture for the podcast. I did something special, but not pumpkin spice. But we have Davos and Tyrion actually discussing Melisandre and the Lord of Light. So
I like that conversation.
I love the conversation, and it's also between, if these are quite possibly the two most likable characters on the show at this point, and have been for some time, I think. I'd
agree.
I mean, even as beloved as Arya is, and we know why, and a lot of it's because she is the badass of all badasses on the show. We know that. But as far as who you'd actually like to hang out with, these are the two.
Yes.
I'd say Tormund, but Tormund I think would be a really would be really irritating after a while. But these two, I think I could definitely hang with. So a question that came to my mind while I was watching the two of them. So now that Melisandre, that she died at the end, and of course Beric died, trying to help Arya, and Hound, I guess, whatever. So I don't think there's no more declared followers of the Lord of Light. At least none that are like major players on the show. So I'm starting to wonder: are there any Is there anyone who believes in the Lord of Light? Should they? Because it's kind of hard to disagree. I mean, not disagree. There are things that have happened where you got to go, maybe there is such a thing. Well, Brienne witnessed the shadow creature that Melisandre had conjured up, so she's seen what it can do. But that,
right.
Not that that's a positive, but they all saw like the flame, lighting up the scythes or the weapons that the Dothraki had, or lighting the bonfires. I'm just wondering if there's how many believers there are left, or if there are any at this point.
I mean, as far as people that are currently at Winterfell, no, I don't. None of our main players. I mean, we do have maybe. I can't think of actually. I can't. We have maybe the Hound, though I wouldn't necessarily call him a believer per se. He's kind of nihilistic.
Right.
I mean, he did see what he saw, so maybe.
He was witness to something in the flames that time.
Right.
So, but he's about as big a cynic as there is on the show.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there really aren't any, at least none that come to mind, because those who have any sort of quote unquote religious beliefs tend, if you think they believe at all, because there are people who I think, well, you might use the words, but you don't believe. Like, I don't think Cersei believes in all the many gods or whatever that is the usual thing. But Sansa might. Although Sansa might go, after what's happened to me over the last several years, I'm not so sure I believe anymore. But then again, Sansa says some odd things a little bit later on that we're going to get to. That's an entire conversation I'm looking forward to, quite frankly. Yeah, I was just one of those things. And Bran, which is the very next thing, is Tyrion and Bran. And they just have that weird little moment where Bran pretty much tells him, "Don't be envious of me. I mostly live in the past."
Right.
But if there was going to be someone who would believe in such an entity, I think it might be him, because he's kind of the most connected to the mysticism of the show right now remaining. But I don't know if he's part of that or not. I really don't know.
Well, that whole conversation may have been the writer's way of saying, okay, that whole storyline's done now.
Yes, that could be it. That would be the way I think they would handle it. Speaking of Bran, as well, because I would like to just nail this once and for all. And if we turn out to be right or wrong, who cares? Bran. Can he or can he not, quote unquote, see the future? I know we've probably talked about this a bit before. If it's a repeat, I don't care. But every time I get into conversations about the show, at some point in that conversation, this comes up. And It seems to be debated. And I even started Googling things, and looking up scenes. And he makes a point of never saying that. He makes a point of saying he can see things in the past, which we know that, and he can see things all around him in the present, which, either be through psychic abilities or through warging into birds and flying other places, which is maybe what he was doing during the long night. We still don't have a really good answer what he was doing, quite frankly. I'll just, you know what? I'll get your opinion first before I say anything. What do you think is the story? Because maybe you think the same thing I do. What do you think is the story with him?
I think that he can see possibilities and probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he could see the future, then it takes away it takes away free will. And where this is brought up is when John is going to make the decision whether or not to tell his sisters about his heritage. Bran says it's your choice.
Right.
That right there is what seals the deal. He doesn't see the future. It's just possibilities and probabilities.
Right. And I think he's talked about choices before. I mean, maybe I'm just imagining that. I don't know if it was during his brief conversations with Theon or Jamie. I feel one of them, there was something along those lines. I think I tend to agree. It's not that it's not that he can, quote unquote, see the future per se. It's more like playing chess, and you can kind of anticipate moves and where things should be leading to. But it's more about having a greater understanding of the past and being able to see things. It's kind of like Bran is. It's like everything that's happened already. Bran is on binge watch mode, so he can see He can see the past more clearly than anyone else, and how all these steps have led to where these characters are now. Whether it be Theon with him at the tree, or Arya, or whomever, or whatever. So that's because the whole thing is like he's kind of the archive, right? He's supposed to be the character.
Right.
That's why the Night King wanted to kill him. So it doesn't make sense that he would be both that. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it doesn't make sense. I mean, obviously it could be anything.
Well, and history is repeating itself in so many ways, which lead to, what's the most probable solution? What's the most probable conflict?
That's very true.
And that he can share that information, but at the end of the day, it's our characters, our players in the game have to make the choice of what they're going to do.
Right. I mean, he, as you said, it's about making a choice. Whereas someone like a certain white-haired femme is all about destiny. I don't think he sees that once it gets to that point. But he doesn't. I don't think he. Right. But I don't think he believes it from the get-go.
We'll put this in like D&D terms. Like he's privy to the DM's map, but he doesn't control the dice.
Okay. Oh boy, all right. We got super geeky last week. That was one of the things we probably left out. So I'm glad we worked it in this week. Back to bouncing around the celebration. I think at this point we're seeing like Tormund and the dudes being, typical asshole bros. And this is when Dany's looking on, not looking all that thrilled with the fact that how Jon is being lauded for, riding a dragon. Meanwhile, no one's gives a crap that she does. This is the part, by the way, in the episode where for a few seconds in one shot you do see coffee cup on the table in front of Dany. So I went back and went, there it is. It's pretty much clear as day. It's not on screen very long, but it's there.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that came up over the weekend. And I was like, hey, that's stuff like that happens. There was infamously a water bottle that you could see in Downton Abbey once. And then I believe, so that was something that people talked about. Right now, I'm kind of remember if that was an actual episode or if it was a shoot for the show. Either way, it shouldn't have been there. But I can't remember if it was the actual show or a photo shoot they were doing for the show, but in character. You can find weird and accidental anachronisms. The most infamous one is probably there's a point if you watch it closely and you give it this Zapruder film test. There's a red sports car somewhere in the movie Ben-Hur.
Right.
Things happen. But and which I think it was kind of funny how big a deal that was made about that. I mean, it was kind of funny, but after a certain point, I was like, all right, enough, guys. All right, let's get back to the actual show, much like this podcast. Meanwhile, I made the picture based on the thing. For that.
It's really not important in the big picture of things, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm a total hypocrite. I do like the fact that she's the one who initiates the toast to the absent Arya. Also clarifying, in case when anyone was wondering, it's like, oh no, everybody knows it was her. I mean, because otherwise the only witness would have been Bran, and Bran's not Mr. Megaphone or anything.
Right.
So, um, but at this point, we again see Tyrion. Tyrion is like the ultimate social butterfly here because he flits everywhere in this room. Because now he's with Jamie and he's instigating that drinking game between his brother and Brienne, while Podrick looks like he's already had too much to drink. He's just got a big sloppy smile on the whole time.
It's
So,
his favorite thing.
oh yeah. But then when they bounce back to, I guess what we call the big table, um, there's a line there that it's Tormund again. He's still going on about uh, John being, John's the man, whatever. And apparently, and if you watch the extras that were shown after the episode aired, at one point, the two guys he's toasting with are actually the two co-creators
Yeah.
of the show in full makeup and beard. So Weiss and Benioff. I would not have known that if we hadn't seen the clips of it afterwards. But it's kind of cute that they were able to work their way into the show without being kind of a wait, stop, like an Alfred Hitchcock, like a stop the press. There they are kind of moment. Mm.
Right.
But getting to something that's actually important, he says something. And he says something along the lines of who rides a dragon, either a madman or a king. This to me is the first of several, just a little bit on the nose foreshadowing that they do in this episode. I call it the crypts are the safest place thing for this episode because
Yes.
you can count them off. I haven't done it myself. I didn't keep a tally, but I'm saying there's at least three times there's something that happens that goes, uh-oh. Really calling attention to this here. Especially in this moment, because I think it's at that point, you see Dany, who does not look happy about any of this kind of...
Yeah, I was waiting for the proverbial spit take, like it was that obvious that, they really wanted you to pay attention to that and her reaction.
Oh, and just to hammer the point home just a little bit more, the hazy out of focus behind her, it's Varys watching so closely because he knows what's going on here. And he's also one of the people who definitely drops a few not so subtle foreshadowing things later on. It goes beyond foreshadowing. That's like, you're pretty much telling us this is what's going to happen. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, he did that in the first season. There was a few instances where he basically laid it out for us with Ned.
Yeah, it's basically the Game of Thrones version of the hysterical woman phenomenon on the show. And this is why you shouldn't have a queen. Right, but and it's funny because even after this, and they're like, ooh, ominous moments. You figure, we'll switch back to the drinking because that's kind of light and fun and levity. But of course, levity can only last so long because after about 30 seconds, Tyrion decides to humiliate Brienne by outing her virginity, and I was like, awkward. And by the way, there's a number of awkward moments in this episode. Which is
there was a few.
Of course, I guess maybe that's a running thing this season. We get these moments that are awkward. Like Arya having sex or Brienne having anyway. But it does set up another bit of comedy once again that Tormund comes over just as, Brienne's trying to get away from the table to take a piss, as she claims. But Jamie ends up going after her, and Tormund is not happy about this. And then
then when he says this cup,
he's pouring out his heart to someone, and when they pull back and you see, it's the Hound. So which makes your Dr. Phil comment even funnier.
Oh, there he is, taking care of all the wounded birds.
Yeah, and meanwhile, he could, I got a curse here. He couldn't give two fucks. I'm sorry. I could not. I don't think there's a character who would care less than him.
Nope.
Other than maybe his brother, because he's just a dead behemoth. That might be the only one that would care less.
Right?
So Tormund ends up picking up some chicks and leaving. And then that's when Sansa, who's been watching from a little ways away, comes over. And then we get a scene that was, I guess, one of the more controversial scenes in the entire episode.
Right. And before we go into that, I have to just make sure that you noticed Podrick in the background during that scene.
Yeah, wasn't Podrick picking up like a couple chicks?
Yeah, he got both the girls.
Oh yeah, there you go. They heard stories. They heard rumors. Someone I was watching or listening, or someone was talking maybe over this weekend that they clearly got confused because they said when Tyrion had the line during the drinking game about you being a virgin, like they had like, well, Podrick was drank at that, so that must mean that he's a virgin. It's like, first of all, he wasn't playing the game, so him drinking has nothing to do with that. Second of all, they have very well established he is no longer a virgin. They've been joking about his wonder dick for a while now. So, right. Unless you just weren't watching the last several seasons. But yeah, I did notice that was kind of, I found that amusing because, love Podrick. So, Sansa and the Hound. And I don't remember I don't think they'd spoken to each other since he arrived at Winterfell. I'm thinking this is their first actual scene together. I
would assume.
I think so.
That way.
I think so. The way they speak to each other, it seems like it was. Because when last we saw them together, if I'm not mistaken, that's when he actually saves her from being raped over in King's Landing. But then she doesn't leave with him, which he makes a reference to, and I think so. They do recount some of what's happened to her. She does get a couple amusing lines early on about referring to Ramsay Bolton about when she says how did he die, and she says hounds. It's obviously a funny joke because he's the Hound.
Right.
But here's the thing. The issue that's been expressed by viewers, including even like Sophie Turner's own co-star in the upcoming X-Men movie, the often great Jessica Chastain was really upset about this. I guess she must have tweeted about it or something. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I could very easily be wrong on this one. But unless I'm totally mistaken, I've watched the scene a couple times now. This is, in my belief, this is really coming down to one line of dialogue. Because if they're also up in arms about the Hound's, fairly callous attitude that leads to that line, that doesn't make sense. That's the Hound. He's going to speak that way.
Right.
So I'm assuming the line is when Sansa says that without Ramsay and Littlefinger and all the rest, she would have stayed a little bird all her life, which is therefore to imply, the horrors that befell her, i.e., pretty much getting raped every night by Ramsay Bolton, right, helped make her the strong woman she is today, or something like that. I mean that.
Okay, I'm going to say this. Understand why people would have maybe taken that a little bit in the wrong direction. That being said, this is a television series that that same scenario. There's been no unfortunate sexual encounters for women and abuse, and there are a lot of people that I know that stopped watching it because it really bothered them because they didn't get they for whatever reasons they could not. They weren't going to deal with that, and that's absolutely fine.
Right.
Do not think for one hot second that the writers of this show, or even Mark himself, would insinuate that her rape was a positive experience. I think what she was trying to express was she would have been clueless. I think when she sees herself as a little bird, we're talking back about the time when she was, 13 years old, 14 years old,
Right.
obsessed with Joffrey, had this like whole idea of rainbows and unicorns and nothing but being a queen, and like these very frivolous, shallow ideas about life.
Right.
And I think what is trying to be expressed in that line is some really nasty aspects of reality have truly taught her what it takes to survive.
Right. Yeah, you've hit upon a key word here, which I think maybe if they had all just changed the line slightly, it would have been fine. And because the whole point is like she's a survivor.
Right. And last week with Centurion in the clips, they didn't jump defend the people being attacked because they know what it takes to survive. They're not warriors; they are survivors.
Right. The other thing with the criticism, which I actually do think to a certain extent, going along with what you said, what I can make of it at least, make out of it at least. The criticism is generally valid to a certain extent. I wish they just phrased the latter part of it a little bit differently, so it would have been a bit more clear. But at the same time, I think people are also losing context, and they're disregarding who she's having this conversation with, what that relationship is, and she wouldn't necessarily be having that same conversation with someone, with Tyrion, for example, or with her brother, or Brienne, or whom. It's the Hound, who's already demonstrated early on this conversation. Yes, of course, if he sees something's happening to her, he tried to save her, but he's still going to be a pretty callous prick about things.
He is a character within the first second episode of the entire series. We quickly learn that he's brutally honest about anything he sees or feels, and he doesn't give two rat's asses about the throne or royalty, or he's a realist. He was handed a really rough card right from the get-go, and he just plows through life. So having that conversation with him, there's not going to be a lot of room for coyness. You got to be pretty much straight. You just got to be straight.
Right. And while what's kind of interesting about the Hound is that while he obviously has had his moments, particularly once he was upon leaving his last moments at King's Landing, and then after he left, where he does let's just say he does the right thing, so to speak. But I don't want. I mean, I don't want to go down the road of just calling him an anti-hero or something like that. But he's at best a very reluctant hero, because he's certainly not the most empathetic of characters. So that way, when he does do something, it's like, oh, okay. But he's very, as you said, he's very brutal about it, brutally honest about it, as well as being brutal. Either it's dragging Arya away from the scene of the Red Wedding because there's nothing you can do. Let's just carries her out of there, or saving Sansa from the rape, or what have you. That's what he does. But he's not the guy who's going to put a caressing hand on someone's cheek to tell them something. That's why it's so amazing. And again, I don't care if I'm only one of a few people. # Team Sasha here. Sansa. Because when she puts her hand on his hand, that's about as sweet a little moment with the Hound as I've ever seen, quite frankly.
I agree.
I was like, wow, look how far she's come. And him allowing that, not like pulling back or something. So
yeah, she's not afraid of him. And more than just not being afraid of him, she recognizes behind all that brutality and rough edges, she recognizes that little piece of him that's still human.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, I think we did a good job with that. Now we can move on.
Woohoo!
I can move on from the rapey stuff. So, but and to something even now we get more awkward. It's funny. Move on from talking about rape to let's talk about back-to-back things, which are either post or pre sexy stuff on the show.
Right? Talk about uncomfortable.
So, the Arya and Gendry. Is it Gendry or Gendry? Gendry, yeah, Gendry. He finds her shooting arrows. Yeah, the fact it was funny because I don't know how many tankards of ale he had, after he got his lordship, whatever. But if he
felt like and like so John Cusick.
He could
needed his boombox.
He couldn't pick up like from the get go that no, this isn't gonna no. And you're watching. It's like it was like watching Swingers when Favreau just keeps making the call over and over to the answering machine. It's like no, stop, no, you don't, no, can't you see, no. Yeah.
But you know what's great about once does Arya have like she knew he was gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I knew this would happen. And, like, she wasn't annoyed by it. She wasn't even necessarily touched by it. She just knew that that's how he was going to do things.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you'll make another a lady, so happy with your lordship, but I'm no lady. and then we move from that to Jamie showing up at Brienne's room, which is actually surprisingly less awkward. I kept wishing that someone would start playing Nelly. It's getting hot in here because
that was kind of weird.
Because Jamie just kept mentioning, wow, it's so hot in here. It's like I'll just try to take off this. Oh, my one hand. How do I do this? Oh, let me help you. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna say a few things about this.
Go for it. Hopefully we can hear you.
All right. One is I will give the writers credit, like the very humorous line of "I've never slept with a knight before." Mm-hmm. That was pretty fun. However, past that, I am so salty about this that I just can't even stand it. I'm like, oh, that's but then somebody kind of like started to dug at me for like 2 days, and then it's like, okay, they ticked off about this. The way that they wrote this little blip in the storyline, it didn't have to happen in order to have massive emotional impact.
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay, Jamie knights her. That is an incredibly touching moment, meaningful, like, gives her the highest respect that, the highest level of military honor that he can, it was such a touching moment.
Mm-hmm.
If they had not had this little tryst together, and he had decided that he was going to leave to go help Cersei kill Cersei, none of the relationship would have had to take place in order for Brienne to beg him to stay.
Okay.
The meaningful attachment in that relationship already happened. And in some ways, I feel like if she would have begged him to stay and he rode off and she was left crying in the same way she was with this, I feel like it would have been meaningful, more realistic, and not as cliche as it became.
Gotcha. Interesting. I think I for the most part I kind of agree. the only things I was the only reason I was even in favor of it, I suppose, while I was watching, is um, because of how of her. I don't know how else to put it. Her physical being, whatever. Gwendolyn Christie is not an actress who gets to get scenes like that very often. I don't think. So I was kind of thought that was cool that she got to have something like that happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can totally give her. That's that's great that she finally got to be recognized as truly female and not like one of the chicks that can hang with the guys.
Right, but everything else. I mean, quite frankly, if I'm going to be brutally honest about it myself, the best thing about these two hooking up was that sometime later Tyrion gets to make tall person jokes.
Yeah, I think the whole thing was like,
Hello?
you know.
I didn't. You kind of went blank space there. I didn't hear what you said.
No, I thought that was fine. The jokes were funny. You know?
Oh yeah, but I mean,
I liked him getting his moment.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but it's such a minor thing. It's like, if that's the best thing I got out of the scene, then
right,
probably.
I maybe after time, maybe after I watch the last two episodes and whatever transpires after this, maybe I'll think differently about that whole thing. But as it sits right now, I'm just kind of like, seriously, like we're gonna do the whole like you're a virgin, oh, but now you got to sleep with the most popular guy, and now the most popular guy is gonna leave you for the most popular girl. Blah.
Well, yes, I see what you're saying. However, I also think they're also doing kind of an interesting little parallel between, two characters both losing their virginity within a night or two of each other, and how differently they approached it, both before and after, and what it meant to them and what the emotional impact was on them. I mean, Arya is almost the polar opposite of Brienne. Of course, Brienne and Jamie have had this long-standing, simmering, however you want to look at, thing going on between them, whereas Arya kind of thought Gendry was really cute from afar, maybe a while back, but probably didn't give it much more thought
Right.
after that. So but I just thought that was very interesting that you had these two things happening and almost in the same episode.
Yeah.
Because if we're to use stereotypical cliches, and so don't smack me for this, but the Arya Gendry thing, Gendry's more the quote unquote girl in that relationship because he's the one.
Yeah, in traditional writing, he's playing the role that would usually be the female.
Right. Because you need Arya to emasculate you even further. Gendry, what's wrong with you? Anyway.
Again, can we just say again that is another reason why I will stand behind Sansa's line that she used, because the writers are very aware of women empowerment, and I think they took a lot of heat the first 4 seasons when we were still really sticking to the guns of Martin's writing. That they have really made sure that some of the most powerful people in this story have been women and continue to be so, and they're not blind to it. And I think that most of what we see serves a purpose.
Right, I agree, absolutely. So we then move from this to what I call the "don't ask and seriously, don't ever tell anyone" scene between
also known as Jon Snow Stark is showing.
Really? Again. What was this? This is basically Dany saying, hey, I like how they kind of, they're all smoochy at first, and then it doesn't, I kept waiting for one of them to pull back, like, hey, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't, and it sort of happens, but not really.
Yeah, and like how many times was it brought up in this episode? Like, in Targaryen life, it's no big deal, but like, is Jon like cool with making out with his aunt? I don't know.
Oh, Jon, your first experience was with a shaggy old wildling. Get over it. You end up marrying her in real life anyway. So yeah, the whole scene is basically, hey, just shut up about it. Just pretend, because don't tell anyone. Don't. And he was like, and he's insisting he wants to tell his sisters about it.
And she's not wrong. She's totally not wrong. She's like, if you tell them, then more people are going to know, and then it's going to get away from you. And she's absolutely correct.
Oh, absolutely. This is one of the few things she is right about. She's not.
I know. I heard some people, they're like, oh, she's starting to show like how she's becoming kind of like the Mad Queen. I'm like, it's the most sane shit she said in weeks.
Yeah, getting with the Mad Queen stuff. So there's that. I mean, he's gonna. I mean, at this point in the episode, like, yeah, there is no. The only way he doesn't tell them is if, he's suddenly struck dumb, by some incantation or something. He's clearly gonna tell them. I didn't know he was gonna end up wussing out and getting his former brother to do the deed for him, but we'll get to that. Where are we now in the episode? Oh, we do get that little brief moment of Jamie looking at Brienne while she's sleeping, as opposed to Arya, who didn't look at Gendry at all while he was sleeping. But we just, that's just for a second, and then we get the whole big, planning the war scene. So
the war council,
yep. War council scene, exactly. And it seems like
and Tyrion lays out another plan that goes down.
Yeah, it's interesting because their whole plan is essentially, surrounding the city. It's basically choking off things like food shipments and whatever that the city would desperately need over time. And after a while, I guess Tyrion's idea is that people will eventually overthrow Cersei because they'll be starving and upset. I was like, wait. Has that ever actually happened in the history of Westeros? Why do you think that's a good plan?
Well, I mean, they've turned against Cersei a couple times, right? Like, remember before Marjorie came around and they're all like throwing crap at Joffrey and and then the whole walk of shame.
Right. But
it exists, but like how long would it take for that to actually happen? I mean, he's not entirely wrong, but
First of all, it takes some time.
Passive aggressive.
Yeah. First of all, it takes some time. Second of all, you're talking about a woman who's also shown that she has no problem. Like, I'm just gonna blow up the set.
Right. Like, I'll just blow them up. If they start throwing food at me, I'll just blow them up. No biggie.
Yeah, she doesn't, because you as you established later on in the episode, and you said a number of times before that they don't like her and she doesn't like them. So she'll just keep slaughtering them then. Why would you think that's a good plan?
Right.
I mean, yes, Danny wants to go to the other extreme, but this is not going to work. They do mention that about their allies, so that they do which is good for establishing things. That they establish that Yara has apparently taken back the Iron Islands because Euron hasn't been there all this time, and they mention that the new Prince of Dorne is on their side. I'm wondering, is that the kid who was going to marry Myrcella? Because I don't remember them ever establishing. I don't remember them ever kill. I don't think they ever killed him, or did they? That's
what I would assume.
Because I don't think
I don't remember him getting killed off, so I would assume that's it.
But then I think what did they call them? The Snake Sisters, the Stupid Sisters, whatever the hell they were. I think they were about to kill him, so maybe they did. I can't remember. I thought they were sent to kill him at one point. To assassinate.
Yeah, I wish I could be more helpful in this, but I'm a little foggy on it.
I got a feeling they were going to kill him, so maybe they did. I don't remember. So, hey, those folks who said that they listened to the podcast, feel free to go on our Facebook page and say, idiot. Yeah, they killed him back in the season 6 or whatever. Because I'm not Pat or Susan or any of those major experts on the show. I'm just winging it here.
Please include a meme.
Yes, memes are the best thing about the season are the memes. So during the War Council thing, here we go, kind of a big one. It's when Sansa wisely points out that these soldiers who just got through this horrible, battle with the dead. Keep in mind they're wounded. They're probably having a problem adjusting to light now since everything was so dark just the other day before. Their eyes are bothering them. They need time to recuperate.
They need to get some transition lenses.
Yeah, and and but John just goes right along with the Queen that we pledge our support and blah blah. John, who should know better? John, who's of the people there, is like the actual guy who's on the battlefield, who's been to war on the battlefield. I know other people have like Tyrion, but come on.
There's like still like there's still people out there like huffing on their inhaler. Like it's been what 24 hours since they were attacked by zombies.
Yeah, all that smoke alone, just from burning the bodies. Right? Come on.
And this is where she's like, Dany again is mirroring Cersei, right? Because Cersei is wrapping herself around all these innocent people in King's Landing, and saying, I don't give a fuck. And Dany is wrapping herself around the military and going, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. But Sansa has enough sense to go, they're people. And Tyrion has enough sense to go, they're people, and Varys as well. And again, like, no one else is listening.
No. So speaking of listening, when the council room clears, I like Arya says, we need a word. And basically this comes down to, we don't trust your queen. Period. Are they wrong to say that? It's understandable why they would say that. I'm not going to say they're right or wrong. It's understandable. And because what we just see Dany do is like, and then when you see her doing that, it's not a great move. This is where the line comes where we get the title of the episode. Arya refers to all of them there because it's the four of them. It's Bran, Jon, Sansa, and Arya as the last of the Starks. So folks who thought they were referring to one specific character, it's referring to all four of them, although one can extrapolate that to mean it means a specific single character, but I don't think so.
But okay, like let's just look at that. Honestly, where it's sitting right now, Sansa is the last Stark. Because I mean, even though Arya was like, "I'm Arya Stark and I'm going home," technically she's nobody. I mean, she uses that a few times.
Yep.
Bran is the three-eyed Raven. He's not Bran anymore.
Right.
Jon Snow isn't a Stark. He's a Targaryen. But so that leaves Sansa. She's the only one that's really truly a Stark that's left, and she's in Winterfell, and she's trying to do right by Winterfell.
Right. I would go along with that. So this is where you get the big scene where he makes them like, swear. Don't tell anybody about this. But it's going to be they told two friends and they told two friends and so on and so on and so on. That's a very old TV reference for the kids out there. However, and oh, by the way, she never listens to the podcast anyway, so my little Khaleesi can't get mad at me because she's anti-Sansa. But hey, because everyone's giving Sansa crap about what she does a little bit later after the scene, but I just want to point out she makes it very clear that she doesn't really want to do the swearing thing. She says like,
right.
How can I swear to someone? I don't know what it's going to be. Just like in real life, where we like promise me before I tell you, you have to promise not to say things. Like, I don't know what you're going to tell me. How can I make a promise based on that? That's not fair. That's unrealistic. So I'm going to defend her by saying it's a little unrealistic to then think you're going to drop that bomb on her and think she's not going to say anything. Arya's not going to say anything because she doesn't hang out with anybody. She just goes off and puts on face and kills people. She's not. She's not seeking others' counsel. She's not talking to advisors and surrounding herself with people and in charge of Winterfell and whatnot.
Right? Yeah, she'll drop a little bit of her. Here's my thoughts about that, and then she's going to move on because really, that's kind of why we like her and the Hound together. They both share that.
Right, and. So, and then as I mentioned before, and when Jon is finally going to tell her, as you said, when Bronn says, it's your choice, he apparently gets Bran to do it for them. He just wants to avoid that awkward conversation. By the way, awkward should have been the word of the podcast, just to make that like the drinking game for this podcast. So,
right?
Yeah. If I could edit this podcast, I'd go back and say, every time I say awkward, take a drink.
Like, awkward and irritated, waited all of, and then he tells us this cut scene and we don't even get to see their reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that because that's a writing trick anyway.
Action. Yeah, I mean, we can assume their reaction. We kind of get it once we see where they stand a few minutes later on things.
Exactly.
Just the same. It's like when it cut, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I was just irritated.
No, I probably had the same feeling, but I also and at the same time I also understood, like, oh, well, we're not going to sit through that again because we've gone through this a few times already. But when we see Sansa later on, like with Tyrion, that's what works for that. When Arya is leaving with the Hound, that's how she is there. So, but something I think maybe folks almost could have forgotten in all the hubbub with the Night King and the Whites and the White Walkers and whatnot. Because when Tyrion and Jaime are hanging out, that's when we get the tall person joke stuff happening. Bronn shows up. And Bronn,
exactly.
He's a more highly caffeinated Bronn than I'm used to on this show.
Yeah, he's like, hey, there's only 3 episodes left. I gotta slam these lines out fucking quick.
Exactly. And apparently, he was hanging at the HBO offices because he's totally channeling Al Swearingen because he says cocksucker at least 3 times, during this thing. See, like, is he trying out for the Deadwood movie? They already filmed it,
Is another repeated a few times.
So, so it basically makes it deal like, okay, I won't kill you, but Tyrion promises him Highgarden. So question.
We forgot.
Say what?
Slap a dwarf.
Yes. He says that he's a killer, not a fighter, so he's going to sit this whole thing out. So, do you think we're going to still eventually see him, like, reluctantly fighting? Or do we seriously think we're not going to see him until after this so-called war is over?
Okay. That we are either, it's going to go one of 2 ways. 1, we don't see him until everything's over. 2, we watch him get brutally killed.
Oh. Interesting. Okay. I think those are probably the 2 most likely options because we've already had heroic Bronn fighting, the good fight, even though we weren't it's like the whole one he was, shooting at the dragon with the scorpion, that whole sequence where it put us in a very odd situation because we all love this character, but we couldn't possibly be rooting for him at that time because,
right.
we hadn't turned on Dany yet. As viewers.
Yeah.
I think we're losing your audio again.
Okay, hold on here.
Oh, there you are.
There we go.
Oh, man. I could reach Missouri. Anyway, go on.
It's all the jet stream action we've been getting, man.
Was there something else you wanted to say about Bronn or that we might have missed that you were saying? I don't know.
Yeah, nothing of importance.
Okay. Well, so we can move on to I think a little moment that we both were probably big fans of each. We got the Hound and Arya together again.
Yay, the band's back together.
So they're heading to King's Landing. Sounds like they both have their own mission in mind, unfinished business as he puts it. They both state that they don't want to come back there.
Yep. Neither one plans on returning.
There's a very amusing little moment when the Hound says, "Are you going to leave me to die again?" And she says, "Probably." That was very, and you can see he likes it as much as she does. I love the fact that these two are so oddly in sync with each other. So question. So we've been anticipating the big Clegane Bowl, right? One of the biggest things I think we're anticipating these last 2 episodes is the Hound versus the Mountain. Now, if these two are traveling together, and they've been, interestingly enough, a big part of each other's lives off and on for several over the course of a few seasons, right? And the Mountain, once upon a time, was on her list. I think he still is technically. I don't think she took the Mountain off her list. I know Cersei's there. I know the Mountain's there. I can't think of who else is still left on the list at this point that's still alive. Do you think they might do something where it's the Hound versus the Mountain, but somehow Arya gets involved? Now, I'm not saying Arya strikes the killing blow, because it will be ridiculous if Arya is the one who kills everybody, even though it seems
right.
But I kind of feel like it's possible she might somehow get involved in it, even if it's to give him a breather or to help him briefly. I don't know. I'm also kind of worrying that both the Hound at the end of the Hound and the Mountain match, much like the Hound versus the Mountain versus the Viper, both end up dead at the end of it. Except this time the Mountain doesn't come back to life. I got a really fear. Right. I got a big fear that's what's going to happen.
I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Cleganes both were gone at the end of it. But I kind of feel like they need to have a battle that involves both the Hound and Arya in some aspect, because watching the two of them fight together would make so many people excited.
Yeah.
That it's kind of like they almost have to do it. That being said, there's a lot of things I felt like they have to do this final season that they're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So we'll see.
That's true. So we'll see. They did the quote unquote fan service, if you buy into that, with other things. This would be something I could go for. This would be like, yeah, I'd like to see that. That might be fairly memorable for me.
Yep.
Especially, I'm trying to remember. Oh wait, he has seen her in action a bit. I forgot. I remember her killing people with needle in front when he was around. That was also early in her killing career.
Yes.
I don't think he knows what she's done up to this point. I wish that we could have a scene, maybe a deleted scene on a future DVD, where they're just still riding the horses next to each other slow, and they're going slow, and just have her say, "Hey, so remember when you pulled me away from, House Fry there? Hey,
Right.
So guess what I did? I killed all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
I made a pie. I made a pie.
She ought to mention when she sees hot pie. I wonder if she took baking lessons from him. Anyway. I wonder these things. So then we switch over to a little moment between Sansa and Tyrion as we see Dany's dragons flapping off in the distance. And basically my way of looking at this scene was the why her? Why provoke her? And,
Right? Yeah. It was like ping pong.
But again, and I put this in the same category as those other things as far as the foreshadowing. And the foreshadowing here is when they bring up the idea of fear. Because this is the first time because she brings up to Tyrion tries to defend her of but many a leader has uses fear, blah blah blah. But this is the first time that's really, as far as I can recall, it's really been used about Dany, which makes me and that he's actually scared of her. Well, why are you saying that now? Oh, I know why. Because we know it's probably going to happen. Because that's where they seem to be pushing this story.
Well, and she's kind of snapped at him, a few times too, as of lately. And then Jorah's gone, and for what it's worth, Jorah, his whole little speech about how originally he didn't care for Tyrion, but he had grown to trust him.
True.
And he knows that she's kind of now like on her own hot-tempered will, and he might be in trouble.
Yeah. There is something I want to say about Tyrion, but I'm going to wait till just a little bit later, and it's just spitballing. And I don't think it's going to happen the more I think about it, but it could happen. But back to this. Oh, we get oh my lord. So we also get the there might be another thing here. It's again it's Star Wars. It's Leia here, but and when she basically and then we cut away, but this is where Sansa basically spills the beans to Tyrion about Jon, even though there's always been part of me that kind of thinks Tyrion kind of might have suspected it already, but just was going to keep his mouth shut. But that was just I was reading into stuff.
Yeah,
more
because he's like incredibly well read, and when Jon first came around, and Tyrion looked really, really concerned about it when they like walked into their little like cabin together to do the nephew aunt lovemaking scene.
Yeah, and they show him outside looking kind of like...
Tormund looked really concerned about that, and we never got a point-blank reason of why he looked so concerned, and I think it's because he knew what was up.
Yeah,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, swing. So, speaking of Jon, so the next scene with him is the goodbye to everyone except your faithful direwolf.
Yeah, oh my God. I'm just going to stare at you. Like, no petting, no that'll do pig, nothing.
Yeah, he says goodbye to Tormund, because unless he was going to have, Ghost go off with, which makes perfect sense. Now, I read about it. I understand that it was actually, they can try to explain it away story-wise, but this is more about, apparently the direwolf is always done via CGI, and they want, I guess because they want to spend money on everything else on the show, they didn't want to also spend the money on having him interact.
Okay.
I know.
I get that, but can we just oh my Lord, dragons.
I know. I know. That's what I was thinking. It's like, wait a minute. We just saw Dany just hanging out with both of her dragons before they go flapping off with, and there's no you don't even need that. You could have just you could have had Sansa and Tyrion talking without dragons flapping around. There's nothing necessary about that moment.
Okay, so do you think it's just a major miss by the writers and creators, or do you think that there's gonna be something?
I don't know what there could be at this point. I
don't want to believe that it was that much of a misstep, but in 2 episodes, it could really just be one of the many missteps we've been catching this season.
I mean, that poor dog lost part of an ear.
I know. He had no ear, and he laid by him when he was everything but a corpse.
Oh yeah,
in the namesake.
There's another meme going around. I think it's of that Ghost is actually the MVP of the show, and goes through all the things that he's done. And if he hadn't saved, and him saving Sam and Sam saving which helps. And if he hadn't done that, then Sam would have been there to save Jorah, and then Jorah would have been there to save Dany, and so on and so forth. And it was like, oh yeah. And then standing by the dead body. But I mean, I'm more of a cat person anyway. But still.
I mean, but come on, give a good dog its day, right?
Yeah, I was. And then they said, "Oh, but he gives it." It's like he doesn't even give him much of a look. He didn't pause. Piece of shit.
He just looked at him.
That tiny ass of his better not end up on the goddamn throne now. Anyway.
I think it's all a setup where they're changing it so that we don't like Dany. They're switching things up so that we're so irritated with Jon that when both of them die, we're like, well, that'll learn you.
Oh, I am totally in the camp of both of them dying, by the way. Just
heck yeah.
I'm totally
it's gotta happen. There's no other logical way.
One other little thing. Oh, yeah, we find out that Gilly's pregnant. So, yay.
I thought the actress was. All season, I've been telling my husband, I'm like, I think she's pregnant. I think, the actress, I think she's pregnant. She looks like she might be pregnant, something in her face. So I'm like, there you go.
There you go. So now we're finally on the ships. So we're in that part of the episode. And then we get that little scene between Tyrion and Varys. I keep calling him Varys. Wow. And this is where we find out that technically 8 people know now. And of course I did the quick count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 8. That's right. That's only going to keep increasing exponentially. There's no way. You're not going to keep a lid on this one. And then we get the latest foreshadowing in the episode. I worry about her state of mind. I'm like, oh god. All right, yeah, the crypt's the safest place. We get it.
Oh, and don't forget Grey Worm and Miss Sunday's like hand holding our life's gonna have a happy ending doom moment.
I totally thought, oh, hey, remember when we made you think that one or both these guys were gonna die when they're like, we're gonna go away together and we'll live in an island and I'll protect you, and they both made it fine. They're like, yeah, there's something going on here. They're playing like the la 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 music, and which means something. Now I'll give them all
la la la, and you're dead.
I'll give them a lot of credit. That was super sudden. It's because when I'm going to use a horrible analogy, and I apologize for this, but it's the first thing that popped into my mind. When one is watching the original 9/11 footage and watching them and on the screen while other people are on a morning show, and when the first plane hits, people aren't. It's like, wait, what? And it's not until like the second one hits, and it's like a much bigger thing that happens. Kind of like when that first harpoon arrow, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it was like shock. It was shock. Like, I yelled swear words at the TV. Immediately.
There was some yelling going on out in Raleigh as well when I was watching it, but then the second one comes through, and then the one just like goes right through his Rhaegal's throat, which sends him plummeting into the sea. And I was like, did they just kill the dragon just like that? And then that's when we see that it's the Ironborn's fleet, whatever, Euron, and he's sitting in this gigantamundo version of the Scorpion harpoon gun that Clyburn had invented. And of course, he's got that big leering smile, which makes he might as well be twirling a freaking mustache. It just they've gone so beautifully over the top with him. It's like, oh, we are so gonna look forward to you dying. Here, it'll be funny if you end up not dying, though. I don't know. I still think he will, but who knows?
Well, okay. See, here's another moment that I just get like really irritated, because this was like the Rick. It was like the Rick and Zigzag, damn it, moment. It's like flying from behind. Yeah, and I think everybody has said that. What the deuce? That would have been an easy one.
There were so many things about it that bothered me. I mean, first she came in like, I'm just gonna burn right towards him. I was like, why would you do that? Because he's gonna put one right through your eye. Number one. Number two, I don't know. Maybe I'm misjudging distance at a certain point. Why are you not breathing fire yet? Shouldn't there be a big wall of flame coming out of you yet? I mean, you got close enough. Come on, we haven't heard a thing where, well, their flames can only reach like 20 feet. No, I've seen it. We've seen it pour on from and then of course, swing around. There's going through the back. You have the ability to fly. But
it was really frustrating. Not to mention, she was like how much further ahead, like, or higher than everybody. Like, there's no way she wouldn't have seen them before that harpoon hit. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it was really irritating the fuck out of me. I was like, what? Once you became aware, and then of course after that, it's basically naval decimation. They just, they just clean their clocks. Tyrion goes overboard, and when that looks like he's about to be hit with the mast of the ship or something. Not the mast, but what you know what I'm talking about. They cut to black, and next thing they're all washed up on the shore of, I guess, Dragonstone or something. I don't know how Varys survived that. I mean, no offense. I mean, Tyrion's small, maybe you can just, but Varys? Anyway.
Just those robes alone.
Yeah. I'm trying to picture him actually swimming. But I mean, he's not weighed down by like balls or anything, so I guess that might be it.
True that.
So then we bang over to Cersei and Clyburn, and it's clear, she's, she might as well be rubbing her hands together like, did we send the message or whatever? But we see all these people pouring into the Red Keep, and she wants them to keep the gates open. She essentially wants to use her people as human shields. It's, so if Dany's going to try to take her out, she's going to have to murder thousands of people to get to her first, I guess. She also takes the time to tell Euron about their child. And I'm like, hopefully maybe Euron will be able to count. Maybe the creatures in this universe don't take 9 months to have a kid. I'm not sure. Are they human? But I like thinking about this just being another planet somewhere. I don't think Game of Thrones takes place on Earth, so I don't think of it that way. And then we find out Missandei is her prisoner.
Yes.
Why she's up there with them hanging out, I don't know. I would think she'd be in a dungeon somewhere or being slapped around somewhere. I don't know, but she's there.
Yeah, the timeline on the whole second half of this episode was really muddled and confusing because in some parts it was a little bit of time, but then all of a sudden it all seems like the same day.
Mm-hmm.
Which wouldn't be possible considering the distance between these places. So.
Yes. Yeah, the time crunch is rather confusing. A lot of my issues with this last, say, half hour, whatever it is, of the episode, it kind of reminds me a lot of the latter parts of the previous season, where the whole people are getting to places a lot faster than one could ever have gotten around before. But I said for my first podcast, I'm going to let that go. I'm willing to let that go. I'm not willing to let go of things that are just stupid.
Right.
Like the plan back in the last season, the whole plan to get the white, whatever, was the zombie thing, it was a very elaborate thing, which I kept thinking, they're going through a lot of trouble with all these people, whatever. It feels like this isn't the greatest plan. This is not a great plan. I mean, and since
because they gave themselves no out, and none of these people would have been stupid enough to not give themselves an out.
Yeah, it was just you have all these master warriors and strategic people, and they have like no fucking plan whatsoever, which seems to be the case with this show and these characters.
And when they do make a plan, they're like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do what I want anyway."
Oh yeah, pretty much. And then we switch over to again. We're with Dany talking to Varys and Tyrion, whatever. And Varys makes it very clear that this is a mistake. He's trying to say the right thing. Do not destroy the city you came to save. But she's just talking about destiny, and her destiny is to save these people. Again, Tyrion floats this idea of asking for Cersei's surrender. Now, I don't know if Tyrion's thought on this is echoing, or doesn't echo because he said it first, is in sync with what Dany is saying, because she's kind of right, because there's no one who would ever think Cersei is going to surrender. Why? Right. Especially now.
There's no way.
Why would she? You're down to one dragon. They clearly have a weapon that can take down a dragon, and most of your forces are tired, bruised, wounded, and whatnot. They're not the underdog anymore, as far as I'm concerned. I know there's the one dragon, but they now have a weapon to fight that dragon. Unless they tell Gendry to start making like really big armor for the dragon, which would be kind of cool, actually. I don't think,
really would.
we need more iron, more iron. But Dany's clear that she knows that this isn't going to work. I think she should also be clear on the fact, because I don't think she says it. There's no way Missandei is not a definite goner. There's no way. Right. There's no way. You should basically that's a loss. You've already lost her. I mean, I'm thinking maybe Dany, like, she did really badly in the Long Night office pool or something, so maybe she can't be sure who may die at this point.
Well, and I think that she knows it too. Like, I think that she knows there's no way she's getting her back, but I think she is going to. I think it's in her plan for her to have the witnesses there to see it happen. To kind of get leverage, to get votes in her direction, to do things the way she wants to do it.
She's trying to build a case. And if she's trying, by the way, if she's trying to build a case, that means she's not going crazy. She's not the mad queen. She's the pissed off queen.
Yeah. She's not actually insane. She's just like so angry that she might have trouble seeing bad spots in her plan.
Right. But
because if there's a mad queen, it's Cersei. It's not Dany.
Right, of course. How can we call her the Mad Queen when what we've seen Cersei do? That's
exactly.
That's crazy.
Dany is not a cruel person. She's lost her advisors. So I think that she's headstrong, and she doesn't always have the best plan, but she's always had an excellent team working with her, and she's losing that team. And Tyrion is, like Sansa said, he's showing some fear of her, his sister.
Yeah. Do you think? I was going to wait till after, but let's wrap into the regular conversation. We got 2 episodes left. I haven't looked at. Well, actually, I guess IMDb has been really mum about things, so that wouldn't help anyway. I keep thinking maybe Dario could still show up in the last 2 episodes.
Maybe.
I mean, he's just considering, especially since they've already established in the last 2 seasons, people can get to places really fast now. So I'm wondering if, because that's one voice from her past that was, one of her advisors and trusted people, because now she's down to Tyrion and Varys, who are kind of people who came a little bit late to the show, so to speak. I'm just wondering. I just think it's a possibility. Although I guess technically Jon would be an advisor too, maybe at this point. I guess you could look at him that way.
I don't think she's going to take anything he has to say, because that's where her weakness that we're seeing is this stuckness, this idea that she has a destiny.
Right, yeah, right.
And that's going to be her biggest flaw, is feeling that she has this destiny, because it's going to keep her from listening to sound reason.
Right, which dovetails right into the very next scene, which is just between Tyrion and Varys, which this is a really great scene, by the way. Maybe.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it was the scene of the episode.
Absolutely. And Varys drops the line about how all Tyrants always speak of destiny. And right. I thought that was a really just good way, just right on. I don't. When I'm saying on the nose, I don't mean it in a bad way this time. I mean, like that. That's exactly.
Well, another reason why I really liked this scene is because it's been a while since we raised an eyebrow, and like, when did we start trusting Varys?
Yeah, we've been.
We've been kind of trusting him lately, which is sort of weird. We've been taught to not trust him. And when he's like, I want to say, yes, he's there for the betterment of the realm, but he keeps almost setting Tyrion up. Like, who do you think would be the better ruler? And Tyrion says, we're discussing treason. It's like, it's almost as if he's just, you're both watching Survivor, but we've started... It's like watching, watching people try to dig out who they want to vote off.
Oh, okay. You were talking about Survivor. I got it. Yeah.
A little eyebrow raising.
I think the troubling thing in it, not for me personally, just as far as the story, that moment towards the end of their conversation, after they've already covered the fact, Tyrion's covered the fact that you're talking treason here. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
And they talk about how the idea of Jon being the leader, or whether they could share the throne, and how she wouldn't cotton to that, et cetera, et cetera. And he says something like, what happened? Varys not answering, and then you realize what the answer actually is, and Tyrion saying, please don't. And that was by the oh boy, it's going there, and Varys doesn't really back off. He's like, we all have choices to make, and he walks off or something, and it's just leaving it open, like, oh. Also made me worry about Varys a little, actually, also, because
there's something there.
Yeah, but if she catches wind of this,
oh, he's toast.
Oh yeah, he may actually literally be toast. Like the
And just so it isn't Tyrion that tells he could toast.
mm, I I have to say that there's part of me that wonders if right now Tyrion may be the last true believer. John loves her and is follow and is willing to be his queen, but Tyrion is more the believer, so to speak.
Right. And believer in
That she's she that genuinely believes that she should be that she is the next you know leader of the Seven Kingdoms, etc., etc., etc. It is her believes the idea of destiny for her because, as they say, she walked into a fire with three stones and came out with three dragons, and Varys pointed out, well, that might be the problem. It's kind of like she's believing her own press clipping, so to speak.
right.
So you kind of wonder if the death of one of those two characters, and again, we should have learned from the long night. Maybe it's best not to keep speculating about people dying on the show because maybe they won't kill anybody. Who knows? But I wonder if the death of either Tyrion or Daenerys, one or the other, may be tied together. Maybe one to the other. Because if it's Tyrion to her, that becomes tragic because he was the last one who believed in her.
Yep.
But then again, you could also say, well, then you can make it John because he loves her, blah, blah, or she's fine. She doesn't die at all. I don't know. I don't want to believe Tyrion will die, but it's certainly, they've only got 2 episodes to go. It's certainly possible. I mean, there's just as much, I think there's about as much speculation about Tyrion somehow will end up on the throne as there is Tyrion's going to die. So,
right.
Which kind of makes me think of every other great show that went out. Is Tony Soprano going to die or is he going to be fine? Is this? I think Tyrion is as much as people kept talking about Jon. I think people are more curious about Tyrion, quite frankly, because Jon's kind of a bore. Not as big a bore as I used to think he was, but still a little bit.
Also, he just always makes really stupid mistakes, even though he's a likable person, an honorable person. It's the same. It's with most of the Starks. We saw it with Robb. We saw it with Ned. Like, we really like them, and we really want to support their character and the things that they believe in. But we're constantly going, "Are you fucking stupid? Stop that!"
Oh well, we'll get into the final moments of the show. But before we get to the last big scene, we do end up back at Winterfell. We get that little moment with Brienne and Sansa, and actually telling Jamie what's happened as far as the death of the dragon and so on. And later he decides to leave, and we kind of just talked about this a little bit, so we don't need to get too much into it, except for one thing we didn't discuss about it. Maybe we touched on it. We just didn't. I think we did. We just didn't say it outright. There seems to be the majority of people who seem to watch this and react to it seem to be acting like he's leaving because he can't break the habit that is Cersei, and regardless of how bad a person and all the things she's done, he still loves her. He's going back to her. Seems to be a lot of people saying that. I personally do not think that's what it's about.
Me either.
I think it's the prophecy comes true. I still feel if there's someone who's going to be responsible for her death, it's going to be him. Although I can see maybe him trying but not succeeding.
It's going to be that.
I think he's going to try, but he's not necessarily going to succeed.
Well, the whole setup of I'm a bad man and I did this for Cersei and I did this for Cersei. I don't think any of this is, well, I'm going to go and protect her. It's more of she's gotten as far as she can and as far as she has because I've helped her. Right. And now I got to go amend for the shit that I've caused.
Yes. Exactly. I when people, and even when I was speaking, there were people who were reacting the other way to it. It's like, did we watch the same thing? I don't think that's what that's about. I don't think that's what that's about at all. I mean,
no, he's going to go try to do right for once.
Right.
as painful as it is, because he does love her. But the painful realization that, oh shit, I have enabled all of this.
Yes. I mean, a lot of us like to say, even though someone tried to say otherwise recently, that this all starts with him pushing the kid out the window.
Right.
You know, granted, some of these things were already in motion anyway, but it's more about him pushing the kid out the window. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure Cersei would have had Robert killed regardless, blah blah blah. But but it wouldn't have been to this degree. Whatever. Okay, so let's get to that final scene outside the gates of King's Landing. So apparently she shows up. Dany shows up, and she's got. It looks to me about, I'd say, roughly 50 troops are with her. I actually tried to pause and count. I was like, okay, it's rows of 6, 12. It's at least 4 rows deep. So it's at least 48 of them. I can't tell if there's a 5th row.
I really, really hope that one of them is like the one nipple guy. I hope he's still standing.
The one nipple guy. Oh no, he's on Legends of Tomorrow now. Whoa. Anyway, I joke that 2 listeners will get. So anyway, so she shows up there with her little mini posse there, and we see all the way in the background, a safe distance away, I guess. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Again.
Yeah, what the hell? Like, does she learn nothing? I'm just going to bring my only mode of awesome ass-kicking transportation that I have left, and put this thing in the line of danger of getting harpooned in the face.
Yeah. Again, I have no idea. Much like I have no idea what the dragon's fire range is, I also have no idea what the range of those scorpion harpoon guns are, because they seem to be zipping through the air pretty, at astronomical supersonic force, when we saw them before. So Tyrion walks in, and we basically have the two hens of the 2 queens meeting. It's Tyrion and Qyburn, and they're both, asking for the other's surrender. And once Tyrion realizes that Qyburn's just really, as he says himself, is just a mouthpiece for Cersei, he walks up on ahead to try to talk some sense to Cersei himself. Again,
that was so great. That was such a great speech.
It's great, although there's still there's a huge part of me that thinks you should know better. You should.
I think he does know better. I think that's why it's so forlorn, and there's so much, like, it's almost as if all hope is lost when he's saying it, but he just has to say it. He has to give her one more chance. He has to try to save these people. But
it reminded me a little bit of when he goes to talk to her last season to try to convince one last time to try to convince her, and and he seemingly does, but then we know she really doesn't. It's like, haven't you gone down this road before? Have you not gone down this road before? And insisting that she's not a monster. Like, yeah, she kind of is.
Right.
I also like the fact that he mentions about he starts referring to her baby, and I believe at one time we get a shot of Euron looking on. So I'm wondering if Euron's going to be, hey mate, how did you know? Wait a second. He starts doing math or something. Like, wait, that.
There's been some good memes with that too.
There's got to be. But like I said, the whole thing is like, you're not a monster, you're not a monster. It's like, yeah, she is. And then she has her pet monster basically lop off Missandei's head. But not before Missandei gives her last words, which are Dracarys. And I apologize if I mispronounce it. Don't care. Which is basically what I say, like, yeah, burn it down, burn it all down.
Okay, and for the standpoint of storytelling and progressing the story, I understand it had to go down that way. Mm-hmm. But from the rational point of view of, if this was me in this circumstance, that if Cersei gets close enough to her to say, prepare your last words, why doesn't she take them chained hands of hers and throw them around Cersei and lop her ass off the edge of that building? She knows she was going to get beheaded. Take one for the team and bring the bitch down with you.
Why doesn't Cersei let her archers kill Tyrion right then and there? She's been wanting to kill him for years now.
Right. There's so many different things right there. And like I said, I know we got to get our final bits of the story in. But
I just
you know.
Cersei has already shown herself not to be she doesn't operate with a sense of honor, generally speaking.
No.
And so
No,
so Danny is there with like 50 troops, 50 soldiers, and the dragon's way back over there, and you've already lined your freaking your walls with the harpoon guns.
Yeah.
I think you could. I would say, other than the fact that you don't want to be standing there, I would just take him out right now. I was like, you're dead, and then start fucking firing your harpoons at them. Just come on. I just
right.
Again,
there was a lot of ways. And as much as many like little irritating complaints I have, I still really enjoyed the episode. I really think this season could have used 2 or 3 more episodes that were normal length to really like finish our story off, but it's not that way. So I'm going to take what we have left, and I'm not going to have huge expectations other than to enjoy it, because I don't want to be disappointed. I'm not going to set myself up to be disappointed.
What's funny is, unlike at least one of our listeners, most other folks I know really liked the second episode. But but the people, the 1 or 2 people who were more critical of it were frustrated by the fact that, we only have 6 episodes left. Should we be wasting time just having people just hang out drinking the night before a battle? I believe, as do others, that there's a lot more to that episode than that, and it's to date of these 4 episodes, it's still given us probably some of our best moments or scenes of the season. But beyond, so it's kind of funny that they could have an episode like that, and yet you have some story elements that feel like they're rushing it, or that they're forcing it to fit a certain thing. And it's right. And maybe if this was it's going to be like 6 episodes, right? I mean, maybe they couldn't do 10, but split the difference, maybe 8. I don't know.
Right.
There, I do believe there's some truth there. There's something else I wanted to say. I just blooped right out of my mind. I'm just trying to remember what it was. Oh, it reminds me a little bit, and it's funny because they both have that kind of warrior period feel to them. HBO had the series several years back, Rome, right?
Right.
And anyone who's seen the show might even know what I'm about to say. I think Rome only ran. I could be wrong about this. I think it only ran for 3 seasons. Might have been 4, but I'm thinking 3. I don't feel like it's really late. I don't feel like looking it up in IMDb. Let's say it was 3 seasons. They totally clearly rushed the last season, and it was like years were flipping by, and people were getting places really fast all the time. Cleopatra, and then Julius Caesar, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wow, this show really took its time the first 2 seasons and built a great story, and now it's like they're rushing to complete it, and you can kind of feel it, and it's like the seams are showing, so to speak.
Right, and I think that's a little bit what's happening here. But I think that the fanfare is still there, and it's overall it's such a amazing undertaking, and we love the characters so much that most of us, not all of us, but most of us are willing to go, you know what, like, yeah, that gets me a little bit, but I'm still really along for the ride. So
right, it's like when in our first podcast a few weeks ago, it was kind of like my revisionist way of looking at season 7. Which I had kind of those logic issues with before, but now I watched it again. Like, you know what? I can let that go because because at the end of the day, did I enjoy it? Did I enjoy what I was seeing? Yeah. Was I caught up in it? Yeah. I sometimes I'm like anybody else. There are times I'm watching something and I get frustrated by characters not acting as smart as I think they should be. And it's more like if you've already established them to be a certain level of intelligence and then they act dumber or more impetuous, which has not been their trademark, it can be bothersome. But sometimes, people do that. I do it.
That's pretty much like how real life goes.
Yeah. It's God knows this is how my life is gone. Anyway. Okay. So we've got 2 left. So that means next week would be the quote unquote penultimate episode, right?
Yeah. And I've heard big things.
I'm curious because if there's one thing, for the most part, that Game of Thrones used to be known for was they really do kick-ass penultimate episodes.
Yep.
A question was posed when I was in a conversation this weekend. Do we think that the next to last episode, i.e. the penultimate episode, will be where all the really crazy big-ass shit happens, and then the final episode will be more aftermath, epilogue, blah, blah, blah kind of a thing? I'm hoping that's not the case. I don't mind if a last, but I want the last episode to still have some meat on that bone, so to speak. And with it only being 6 episodes, I gotta believe it will be. I don't think we're gonna know who's gonna be. I don't think we're gonna know who's the final ass on the throne by the end of next week.
No,
that would be kind of. However, I agree. I do think this is going to be a big one. Quite frankly, they all should have been big ones. That's what she said. But wow, I can't believe I fell into that.
I'm starting to think though that by the last episode there won't be a throne.
I am starting to agree with that as well. Because, you know what? I got a feeling Dany might pull off breaking the wheel even if she's not around to see it.
Yep.
That the wheel will be broken, but it'll be after her time has come.
Yep.
You know, because all the other theories I've had, and that other people have had, I keep thinking about, we either be joking ones like, oh, it's Cersei on the throne, but no, pull off a face, it's Arya on the throne, or maybe Tyrion on the throne. Although I'd really love it. I'd piss off so many people. I'd love it if Sansa ended up on that, just for the fuck of it.
Hey, I wouldn't be absolutely against it. I've kind of poked at it before, but I think at the end of it, I think it would all be better off if it wasn't. I mean, they've been beating us in the head about this wheel, the spokes on the wheel, undo the wheel.
Yeah. Or just level the whole place. We shall see. Alrighty then. Okay, time to wrap up. I kind of gave you guys all the info in the beginning of the podcast. So again, Facebook page, Serious TV Drama Podcast, go there. iTunes, you can subscribe, rate, and review us. Punch in Serious TV Drama Podcast. That's how you find us there. And again, the Twitter handle is at STVD Podcast. STVD Pod, as in Serious TV Drama Podcast. By the way, I can't remember if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast. I probably did years ago. We technically have an email address that we've never used. I have to get Dan aboard to get the password to access it again. Everything was done under his name a million years ago. But if anyone I encourage folks to comment on our Facebook page and hey,
yeah, do that.
If you do that, guess what? Maybe we can talk about it in our next podcast. Like real podcasts do,
the grown-ups do.
But if as a joke, because it's possible between now and the next time I record, I might have access to it again. If you just want to, for the hell of it, send an email. It's a really good, simple email address. It's stvdpodcast@gmail.com. It exists. It's probably filled with nothing but junk and probably old porn subscriptions. I don't know what's there anymore. Apparently, I think we even have a blog page where I was doing things for the first 10 or 12 podcasts and then stopped. I don't even know what that page is called. I don't know. It exists. I'm sure maybe if I Google it, I can find it. I'll see if I still have access to it. But I don't got time to be doing that anymore anyway. Okay. So, by the way, yeah, right. Google us, Serious TV Drama Podcast, and you can find us a million other places too. Okay. So that's it for tonight. Jamie, thank you once again for joining me for this rollicking Game of Thrones conversation.
Thanks again for, keeping me in the late evenings. Hopefully you can hear more than half of what I had to say with my lovely connection I've got tonight.
Yeah, but yeah, again, our apologies. I know in my ears I was missing chunks of what you were saying that sometimes maybe more of it comes through on the recording. I don't think so. But
We'll just pretend like I'm being, because I'm just going off on like a cussing rant. Let's just do that.
yeah.
I was getting.
See, this is the problem of doing a podcast with no post production. Like I can't go in and edit all your stuff out. So.
Yep. You're stuck with it, man. You're stuck with it.
You know, I went into this podcast saying we're going to make Jamie talk more because I'm hearing from listeners they want more Jamie, and then we get more Jamie, and it basically sounds like this.
We're gonna mute out a fourth of what she fucking says.
It's Jamie redacted. Oh man. Anyway, okay. I want to stop before we push it to the 2-hour mark. So again, thank you guys for listening out there, and we will be back next week. I wish we had music, so I'll just do the same thing I've done the last couple of months. Do. Okay, it's over. Goodbye. Good night.